Now, let us prepare our hearts and our minds for a time of meditation. I invite you to find a comfortable position in your seats. Close your eyes if you wish. Take a few deep breaths. Let go of any distractions and worries that may be on your mind.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, then I go inside and I quiet my mind. I hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love.
And now we'll have a time of meditation with Dr. Tim. If you want to unmute Dr. Tim, thank you.
Thank you. I just invite you to mute your cell phones as your speaker should have done. Pardon me. I invite you to take a nice deep breath and simply let it go. Realize that you're breathing in love. You're breathing in peace. You're breathing in joy and all good things. And as you exhale, just as you feel your body relax, know that you are releasing all that no longer serves you. Everything that no longer serves you simply fades away, and you begin to turn your senses inward. Those things that make you aware of all the world around you. Let them be turned inward now. Inward to that place of becoming aware of the divine presence, the divine essence, that at the very core of your being. Knowing that you are not becoming closer to God, you're not becoming more, you're simply awakening. You're coming to a greater realization of your own truth, the truth of your being. This place where there is greater love, there's greater joy, there's greater peace. There's that infinite opportunity to express that love and to experience it. Infinite ways to express joy and to experience it. For goodness, infinite ways both to experience and express. Health, abundance, all good things already there, already within, because of the divine presence. And simply awakening to that. We take a moment simply to go into the silence, into that place where we're so aware of that inner presence, so aware of the truth of our being, that it becomes something that molds and reflects long after this time has passed. So simply take that deep breath as we go into the silence. And now you're just drawing another deep breath, beginning to become back to an awareness of the here and the now, of this time and of this place. And even as we come back, we bring that awareness of divine presence. As I say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And just as you're ready, simply open your eyes back in our time today, sharing love. Thank you.
Bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. I'm through crying, I'm through waiting, I'm through hoping against all hope. I'm through longing longing for something gone that'll never return. I think I've finally learned to bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. I'm through grieving, I'm through dreaming that the life I had is ever coming back. No more wishing on someone else's star that'll never be mine. I think it's time to bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. Well, I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. And I've been down many times before, broken hearts and slamming doors. I'll be all right, yes I will, once more, just like I was back then. I'm gonna rise again, so bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. So bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I'm so ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. I know it's gonna be everything new.
David Trolley, thank you very much. The music ministry of David Trolley. Just what we needed this morning, everything new. And what else we need this morning is Dr. Tim. So good to have you with us this morning, Dr. Tim. And that cell phone, don't worry about it. Having an interactive virtual ministry, we're used to anything can happen during a service. Anything. Yes, anything. And I'm looking forward to your talk today. As I understand it, we're going to hear about those tried and true values and principles that will carry us through anything that's going on in this human experience. And God knows there's enough going on. So thanks for being here today and welcome to Unity of Davis.
Thank you. And thank you. I am just so excited and happy to be here. And I will make mention that the cell phone thing many years ago, I was in with Neil Donald Walsh, one of his talks, and someone in the congregation had failed to silence their cell phone and it rang. And he turned around and he said, "Answer that quickly. It's got to be God calling on a cell phone that's off." So that is just one of those things, and that's a new one. But anyway, so again, thank you. I am just so thrilled again to be here. And I am going to talk about those principles, and I'm going to talk the full title. And I told him, I said, shorten it if you need to, is about navigating new horizons, embracing change while anchored in timeless truth. And it's the beginning of a new year. We're only on the second Sunday. And most people are still sort of in that mood. It's a new year and something new coming up. What's the really great thing about being in Unity or other New Thought teachings is there's that recognition that every moment, every breath is that opportunity for something new, something greater, something that has never been before, because there are those infinite possibilities. So I'm grateful that we're like that we recognize it. And yet also when one of the certifications I had to go to New York City, study with a behavioral psychologist there. And one of the things that you learn in studies is that part of the human psyche, part of that ability is to find security in something that's familiar. And when things become unfamiliar, sometimes that can lead to those feelings of insecurity or anxiety. I mean, let me make this full size on the screen for a moment, because I want to see everybody for a moment, and I want to see how many of you, since the pandemic started, something happened and you've said, "I've never in my life been through something like this." Anybody else other than just me? It was the first time, but it was that experience, and it can be unsettling if you don't stay anchored in truth. We add that on there. And then there are, I remember the first time I walked in during a grocery store and looked, and there was no toilet paper. That can take away a sense of security. What's going to happen? What the food shelves? We can go back, and there's so many things I could bring into that. But we live right now in this rapidly changing time. Uh, I don't go into politics, but politically, in my lifetime, I've never seen a time when the sides were so divided and they allowed it to get so much into destroying families and everything else. So we do live in times that are always changing. So this won't just apply to today, but it's something that we can look at always, every day of our life. And when we look at changes, let me say that it can break into two different categories: things that we want to see change that we're happy to see, and other times that change that maybe wasn't something that we really desired. The good thing about it is that we know from the teachings that we have, the teachings you find in Unity or religious science or divine science, that there is this, oh goodness, let me think of the right word that I want to hear. It's a quantum potential in everything for change. And I am so appreciative this morning of the song that one of the first ones in the line, it says, one of it says, "Everything I am is you, God. Everything I am is you." Now we like to, and hopefully they won't kick me off here as I say this, but we like to say, and it's part of Unity and Word, that there's a spark of God within us. But that spark is in every cell, every fiber. There is only God. That spark became so much, Charles Fillmore talked about, it made him fairly sizzle. I believe we can get that spark in every cell until we are just absolutely excited about new potentials and new opportunities. We can be excited about change. And New Thought people tend to be more aware of creativity. And because we understand not only that creativity, but our oneness with God, there's one particular person that I know at Unity Village, and people sometimes, will lovingly, it's not a demo, lovingly refer to him sometimes as the word police, because we're trying to explain a perfect principle with an imperfect language. But you see, if God is really all there is, an omnipresence that there can't be as one saying goes, there's not a spot where God is not. There is no part of you that's other than divine. Does that make sense to everybody? Wave at me if you hear what I'm saying. We try to get that, but the wonder about our teaching and taking these principles and making them work is that I have tried many times to look through and see our teaching And coming from the background that I did from a traditional type church, as long as you do not bring a duality in, as long as you realize the allness that God is, everything that we have is truth, and you cannot find a fault in it. It's a firm foundation. And when you bring the duality in, though, it's like breaking the foundation, then suddenly it can all begin to crumble. So understand that that divinity, that you are, and we like to say an expression of God, but you're also God in expression. As I say, you or I, you're not all of God, but God is all of you. Think of that. You're not all of God, but God is all of you. And when we understand that, then we know that when we face changes, we can go into it with peace, because if God is all there is, we can understand that verse from the Bible when he said, if God be for us, who can be against us? And once we align with that, we know it. And we know that creativity. Do we have anybody in here today that on here that's written a book? Go ahead, raise your hand. Don't be shy. Raise your hand. Dixie, I think you raise your hand. Somebody else. Emily, I see you. All right. There are people here in this virtual room today. You've written books, but the same creativity that brought the universe into existence is the creativity that flowed through you and allowed you to write your book. Songwriters, we have a songwriter on here that'll raise their hand. I know we probably have at least one. Okay. And the same creativity that put the planets in motion. Think of it. That awesome creativity was flowing through you and allowed you to write that song. So that's the wonderful thing when we look at new possibilities, new things, how we can look at them and realize the power that is within us. Secondly, as I move forward here, not only are we creative, but we can know that there are several ways that we use it. We create, we do it whenever we bring something new in, whether that's something we like or not. So if it's something we're not, how do we look at that? Are there people, and again, today it is my first time with Unity of Davis, but I found everybody beforehand that I fell in love with folks in the little talk that we had beforehand. But anybody in here really a reader of Emmett Fox, when he said everything is by right of consciousness. Okay. And people often mistranslate that. We see a change, and the way that people navigate that change, sometimes they can't navigate it. They get hung up because they get hung up in a feeling of fault or blame or guilt if it's something they didn't like. Sometimes when someone is sick, and I have a friend who was in a ministry program and left it because they felt very much that they were blamed by people around them, the way they worded things when one of their family members was sick. And the thing is, you see, blame looks backward. Responsibility looks forward. We can be responsible. That's responsible, able to respond to what's going on in life. And when we look at this, and I have a note here that I want to read about it. Yeah. If we look at the definitions of it, responsibility refers to a state or effect of being accountable for the actions, our choices, our decisions. All right. But it's future oriented. Responsibility is future oriented. We focus on what actions we can take, what we can change, what we can rectify that improves a situation. Responsibility is about learning, and it's about growth. If we go to that other end of the spectrum and people begin to look at it because something's messed up and blaming, even if we're blaming ourselves, that's backward looking. And it also is something that involves judgment or an accusation. So I think of it like this. If you a lot of analogies about the size of a rearview mirror versus the windshield. But today, if you get out to drive your car and you look at the rearview mirror 95% of the time, I promise you, you will not get far. You agree with that? You won't get far if you just look at the rearview mirror. But it is something to have there a little bit. You do need to check out occasionally what's coming up behind you, but you focus your attention on what's ahead of you. And if you live your life always focused in that rearview mirror of life, your life becomes stuck. You can't go forward. You can't have those new things. So the first thing today is to keep yourself going forward, thinking of that as our being able to respond when something has happened. There we go. And keeping those key differences in there. Again, if we do it with a sense of responsibility, it lets us become engaged in problem solving, in self-improvement. It becomes something that is reflective. And everything that you may think of as, quote, a mistake becomes instead an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for something new. And there are certain things when we go into this, and like I said, we can't always choose what that change is going to be. I would have made some different choices on scales that are beyond my personal life. We have much more control over our personal life than we may over what's going on in the entire world. But there are some things I would have done differently. And I have a choice. Can I look at that and embrace it? And by embrace it, I don't mean that I have to look at it in the same sense that I would something that I want to always be there. In the Bible, there are a lot of analogies, a lot of metaphors about being the potter in the clay. And when that clay is there and it's just a lump, it has no form, it's not what the potter wants. He can't change it until he puts his hands on it and he begins to take it in and embrace it. So today, if we simply want to stay hands off and back away and try to deny something, we don't change it. When we embrace it and then we apply the principles that we have, apply those things, knowing that if we have spiritual communion, if we are communing with spirit, prayer, meditation, we begin to see things change. And it's not always about knowing the way you're going to do it. I don't know about you, but I'm used to being in a crowd a lot of times and saying something and people raising a hand or saying something. But I'll just ask, how many of you ever had a task, something you wanted to undertake, and you didn't have a clue as to how to get there? Anybody? Yeah, I see a few people. Everybody who raised your hand, thank you. The rest of you, own up to it. But anyway, we all get into things that we don't know how to do. And the thing is, we have that infinite knowledge. We have that infinite wisdom. It is within us. We don't have to look outside of us because why? Where's the divine spark? It is within us. So that knowledge is already there. You may not be consciously aware of it yet, but it's there. And the key, what is our key with that? It's that we don't focus on the middle of something. We don't have to start focusing on that. We focus on that end. The Bible says that, talks about knowing the end from the beginning. All right, knowing the end from the beginning. And when we begin to know that if you're committed to it, the way will unfold itself. Does that make sense? Everybody nod your head. All right. But the way can unfold itself. What we have to do is we have to know that. So with these things, we know that the faith we have is based on unchanging spiritual laws. And, well, one of the things that I always point out, how many of you believe that there are speed laws? about your car, how fast you can drive it. Okay. Now, nobody get upset with me. There aren't. There are no speed laws there. There are rules and regulations, because you see, a law is kind of like gravity. It's something that you don't break, because today, this is the cup. If I drop it, it's going to go to the ground. And I don't, other than not to drop it or set it on a table, that's a law. It can't be broken. Because, see, speeding, you might be on a little road and nobody catches you. And you might not have an accident that day. So you might not have an immediate consequence. But in this spiritual realm where there is cause and there is effect, okay, this spiritual realm where there is the involution of a thought and the evolution of its expression, that's something that doesn't change, and that's something that we don't break. Does everybody get what I'm saying with that? So when I say that, when I talk about there are spiritual laws, there are spiritual truths that simply cannot be broken. They can't be changed, no matter how long it is. It was the truth back, well, I could go back further than that, but it was truth when the original founders of New Thought started. It was truth if you want to go back to the days when the Bible was written. It was truth before that. It was simply truth, and it remains truth. So when we go in to different situations, we have to realize that we take these truths and we apply them. I call it practical spirituality. Practical means it's something that we can use, something that's worthwhile. And if we don't make it practical, then it is the opposite of being practical, is that it's not useful. So our truths are useful. They adapt to what we're doing with them. Earlier in our little talk beforehand, we mentioned, and I said, we were talking about the relationship between unity and divine science back at the founders level, with a family relation between Charles Fillmore's business partner and one of the figures in divine science. And I made a statement, and it was just my belief. I said, well, I believe that if we had the ease of communication and travel at that time that we have today, if we'd had an internet or even telephones we could pick up and talk and fly across the country in a few hours, then I'm not sure that there would have been two different organizations. Back at that level, all the founders, they did tend to work well together. They had their little nuances, but they worked well together. Okay. And the principles they used brought about healing. But they had to develop that consciousness. It took Myrtle a few years of time to heal her body. It took Charles, I think it was 2 years or 3, was it, to heal his leg from the skating accident. So it took time sometimes to bring about that healing truth within. God's always perfect, so therefore it wasn't waiting on God. It was simply waiting on that human side, I'll use a side or function, to get to that point where it could happen. But the truth was there. And sometimes today we don't witness, or we don't appear to, sometimes witness as often some of the great healing stories, because we tend to think now we choose our middles more. We know that we have medicines and things like that. And that's something we use. Nothing wrong with it. I have pills I take every day, okay? And God is everything. So God is the wisdom and the knowledge, everything that brought that about. I'm not knocking something. I'm simply saying that it's what we have become accustomed to. So that is now our consciousness about it. But the principle hasn't changed. And sometimes it's not about knowing how it unfolds. It's not about knowing the middle. It's about knowing the end. So maybe if you know the end of perfect health, that's going to be through medicine. We're not trying to do it because do you really care? As long as you reach that state of health, you reach that state of healing. Let's always stay true to our principles, stay true to what our teaching is. They're flexible and yet unchangeable. Flexible in that they can be applied in so many ways, but unchangeable in that the law itself doesn't change. I'll share this before I close here. And that is, many years ago, I was on a trip out of state, and I met with a minister who was of the same teaching that I was. And, you know, if you talk to ministers, we all have our own little things that we like. One minister may really like a particular type of music that's in service beforehand. Another one may like something different. And there are other things that are a little variable. Sometimes we have personal taste. That's the reason that, again, we were talking about it would really have been great for all the organizations to have been one earlier when we said that. But again, we're all individualized expressions of the divine. So therefore, it's about finding that way that best fits and suits us. And this particular person said about an experience they had, how that they were out in nature and had an experience. And at that point, they were one with God. And I looked at him and I said, and the way he worded it was that he became one with God at that moment. And I said, no, I said, you already were. You just recognized it. You had that moment of awakening that you realized it. So today, if we're going to navigate change, we have to step into that where we realize it. And that may be for you, it may be lighting a candle in something quiet. For someone else, it may be something a little different. But find that spiritual practice. Remember, change, inevitable. It's going to happen. Embrace it, begin to mold it so that change that may seem like something you don't want may become the very dream that you've had. All right. Remember, God is all, everything. So therefore, when you're working on that, there's no power in the universe against you. God is all there is. So therefore, if God is for you, no one can be against you in it. The prayer, the spiritual practice, that is that connection. It keeps us connected to all the wisdom, all the power, all the knowledge is there. And foremost, there is that principle of love. And everything we do, let it be done in love. You can navigate almost anything if you take a deep breath and realize love. How many of you know that's true? If you take that deep breath and realize love, you can navigate it. So in the new year, let it be the year you live your dreams. You experience greater good than you've ever thought of in your life. You experience love that is beyond anything you've ever thought imaginable. A peace, because there is that peace so profound that nothing will ever disturb it. This new year, let it be the year you live and you walk in that. And let every new beginning remind you that those infinite possibilities are there. So thank you. And thank you again for having me.